Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of you and peace out to the rest of you. I'm not going through the whole intro this time. I got to get to it. Thank you to J Menelik. I appreciate you sending me that link to Dynast Amir's live stream with Nakmeezy. Of course, I was going to have to watch that. I want to say to the larger audience, before I get into the main meat of this, number one, I'm glad that Nakmeezy and Black and Goonie made peace. But there's a lesson to be learned from the conflict itself. Nakmeezy is a level-headed, logical thinker. He still lost his temper when he was interrupted again and again and again. Black and Goonie did not have to hate Nakmeezy in order to provoke this response. I keep telling black folks it is important that we learn to take turns talking. Take turns fudding the shuck up and listening. Obsidian, nothing personal, but you weren't doing that very well when it came to Edward for the portion I listened to. I actually had to quit listening because you just kept cutting them off. This is a black problem. It's not a black American. It's not a black African. It's not a Caribbean black problem. It is not an Afro-Latino problem. It is a black problem worldwide. Here's why. It is a problem of many people, actually. To prove what I'm saying, there's some people that are worse at it than we are. To give an example. You all know I'm teaching a bunch of not only Arabs, but Bedouin Arabs how to speak English, giving them a second language. I'm trying to, at least. I mean, well, I don't mean them any harm. I'm not trying to make them forget Arabic and make them not be Arabs anymore. I feel like I have a moral right to resort to such measures, but I don't try that. It was done to us. I'm not happy about it. I don't plan on doing that to them. But see, now I'm teaching two classes. In these two classes, they're not even the same level. One is level 3, the other one is level 4. We're in the 4th quarter, so the level 4 one is on time. The level 3 class is a quarter behind. Both of them are saying that I kick them out of class and then mark them absent when they don't reply at all, like when they don't answer me at all. In actuality, I don't do that. I told them that the administrators could do that. Now, sometimes I'll take one and try to turn his microphone on or make him a presenter, and then he sees it, I guess, and leaves or whatever the case is, or maybe his classmates say to him on the WhatsApp group, hey, Professor Blackmind is calling you, you need to answer. So then he comes. What usually happens is that they know they've been busted. So they come in and a few minutes later, they either answer and I tell them, nope, I'm telling the administrators, not me. I say, I'm telling the administrators to mark you absent because you weren't here earlier. Or they just log out. But I specified that it was the admins doing this. It ain't even my job. I'm not going to give myself their responsibility. They went into the complaint section and complained, both classes. I thought the level 3 class was doing it because they didn't understand me. They didn't understand what I told them. I found out that the level 4 class understood because if they didn't, one of their classmates translated what I said to them. They still went in and complained and said that I was doing these things I wasn't. Now that's outright lying. That's not even just a miscommunication, a misunderstanding, or they interrupted. That is them lying. They know that their English is terrible, and they start making assumptions about what I said in English and lying about it after it was translated to them correctly. So Arabs will do even worse. It's not misunderstandings a lot of times. They get into arguments with each other because someone is effing lying. They're deceptive. They mean harm. They ain't trying to hide nobody's business, nothing like that. They're just deceptive. And will swear to God. Literally, they'll say, wallah, wallah, and they're lying. So we actually aren't the worst in the world with that, but we do pay the worst price for it. I say that because when other people come into the room, we're not united. When we walk into the room with other people, they are united, usually against us. There are a few exceptions, and we don't know what the exceptions are because there's so few. That's a problem. So now if you're Muslim and you're hearing this, make dua for your mans. If you're not Muslim and you're hearing this, just understand I'm giving you an example to show that we're not the worst in the world with it, but we do have to pay the worst price. So we need to cut that mess out. Now that I've gotten that out the way, I'm going to get to the meat of the reason I wanted to record this. Nakmeezy brought up the point of bring it back to black regarding those who were ambiguous, questionable, bring it back to black. The opposite of what color struck Latinos call mejorando la raza or blanqueamiento. And I'll straight say, first off, regarding mejorando la raza, as they call it, it has an opposite meaning. To me, mejorando is when you put black blood in it, not try to dilute it. But nonetheless, they call it, and they mean what they mean. And they mean blanqueamiento. And I would say that it should be blanqueamiento or blanqueamiento, not blanqueamiento. Not whitening, but blackening. And I don't mind telling Arabs that that's my idea of it. But they don't have a word like mejorar la raza or a term like that. But they have this thing when even they're color struck in the way that they choose their women. And I diss them for it. I say to them certain things they don't like outside of the university, outside of work. But let me tell you all this. Look, when it comes to bringing it back to black, I want to remind us of something. Morally speaking, his idea is fine. And that's where your loyalty lies, and you don't want to remain questionable throughout your lineage. Fine, do so. But black men, if you are questionable looking, you don't have the option. Don't forget that. I'm not aware of how much he knows about what ambiguous looking bros go through. I'm not sure. I know he's from New York. I know that in general in New York, cats that are too pale and not wanted. I understand that. I just don't know if he's aware of the extent or if he's even aware of the phenomena. He may think it's still like it was back in the 80s where we get all the B words. No. We know it's not been that way. He may think it's just not really as bad as they say. I'm not sure. We know it's as bad. And the paler and the more ambiguous looking you are, the worse it gets. We know this. But that's why you're going to have to come to the understanding that that's why you got to come to this understanding. It's not your call. You don't get to choose if you're going to bring it back to black as a man. Matter of fact, you usually will not be able to, except under conditions in which she would be insulted should they be reversed and you were to pursue her. Stop and think about it for a second. If a woman knew that you were only going to pursue her when you have kids and child support bills and debt and less attention from other women, then you're willing to give her a shot. She'd get insulted. She should be. That's exactly what it is. Bros, I want you to understand that's exactly what you're facing. As African American men, that's exactly what you are facing. As ambiguous looking black men, that's what you're facing. Stop and think about it. When you've been approached. Now, you know about when you've been avoided, ghosted, or even just politely declined, which is fine. When it wasn't the case, when you were shown choosing signals, look at the situation and how her situation was different. Someone else's kids, a gut, less education, country ghetto, less couth, debt, financial irresponsibility even with a good job, these type things, problems, and even bad hygiene. Something that would cause them to get less attention than what they would have gotten before. And shout out to Dynast John Pierre for telling us about the trifling hygiene he's seen. I ain't with all the fornication, and I see the stories are kind of gross, but I understand why he had to tell us that. See, you ambiguous looking brothers know. For one, brothers in general got to have hygiene on point. You know that. You ambiguous brothers know yours has to be perfect. You already know that. You know that on a date, some of them will crap test you by trying to get you to eat something spicy, and then later on, if they smell it on your breath, they'll say something about it. They don't care. Some of you know from the times you've been on dates, they will eat something and it'll leave their breath stanky, smelly, funky, and they won't do nothing about it. And you the one that's like, you taking a peppermint afterwards because you know you got to be on hygiene after dinner. They don't feel a guck. They're looking at you like, you better be. See, yours has to be perfect. Most bros got to have great hygiene. Yours has to be perfect. You know, as a light bright. Just to not be insulted sometimes, depending on what the environment is, you have to first eat breakfast. Then afterwards, that's when you have to do all the brushing. And you know you have to floss, scrape your tongue, then brush your teeth and your tongue with a mint flavored toothpaste, then run mouthwash in it, and then spit everything out, get dressed, put on the cologne, go to work. A lot of people brush, then they eat breakfast. Most of you know you gotta finish eating breakfast before you do all of them steps I just told you about. A lot of you have learned this. Many of you know you don't just have to wipe when you're done. You gotta wipe with an astringent. Many of you know you don't just have to put soap on your feet when you showering. You got to then turn around and put a powder on so that they don't sweat before you put your socks on. A lot of you have learned all these things because if you're sitting up at work and you're talking to another dude and his breath is funky, but he's more normal looking and women pass by and smell it, they're going to automatically assume it's yours. You already know that. And here's the funny thing, a lot of what I just said, many of you knew, but you knew subconsciously without even having to think about it. That's how embedded it is. If the situation calls for this, but only from you, then why the hell should you sit up and wait for those who made these rules to give you an opportunity to make it so that maybe your kids won't have to go through the same thing? You don't. Morally speaking, bringing it back to black is fine, but that is an option that only a lot of sisters who are ambiguous looking are going to have. Make no bones about it. Make no mistake about it. The ladies will sit up and say that Tyrese would not have married his ex-wife if she'd been darker. I would submit that in actuality, she would not have married him if everything else was the same, but he was paler than she is. She would not have married him. I submit that. Would not have. And even now, when she's talking about don't date these celebrities and these high value men, if he had been paler than her and it didn't work out, then she'd have been talking about don't date men that look like this, because you can say stuff like that. See, they can talk about how even when they don't mean it, they can sit up and talk about what a problem we are as ambiguous looking men. And they can get away with it. No one's going to say anything to them. I'll give an example, another one. There was this clip, I think it was from last summer, but there was this clip of this man, yellow bone brother, on a date, and the lady, on a lunch date, I think it was, the lady had her phone out recording him going down the bill saying, this was your order, this is my order, this is your order, because he was splitting it up. And the funny thing is that when I saw it on Facebook and on Twitter. And when I saw it, let me tell you what I noticed. In the comment sections under both, matter of fact, the second time I saw it was when I looked up the hashtag light skinned men and his video came up. That was my second time seeing it. Because he was hashtagged like that. Or the video was hashtagged like that, and there were women talking about how men who look like him act this way. Really? In a climate like this, gentlemen, if you're ambiguous looking, Nakmeezy's advice is moral, and that's fine. Nothing against him, but you must understand that that's not an option for you, and it never was, and it's not your fault, so don't pursue it. See, if we think back to 89 when it shifted in some places, and maybe 1990 and 91 in other places, But if we think back to when this shift occurred, the reason why a lot of us ambiguous looking cats didn't outright say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to step out, is only because when the shift occurred, sisters weren't saying exactly what it was. They were changing what they pursued. But the closest thing they would get would be MC Light's. The closest confession to that was MC Light's song Gotta Get a Roughneck. And that was more so about how rough a dude was than it was about the phenotype. And that's as close a confession as we got. It wasn't until 1995 you could even hear, as a joke, you'd hear light-skinned bros out of style. It didn't happen until 1995. Then, as you all know, it wasn't until 2001 that I had my second colleague at work tell me why I was being treated differently, why it was going to be harder for me, and I should have stepped out of the race early on in life. About half a year, well, actually, less than half a year from now, yeah, less than that. I guess it was July or August that she told me this. Maybe it was June. I don't think it was, though. This summer is going to make the 20th year since I learned that. It was a decade on when I was finally told what the hell it was and that it wasn't a joke. By that point, it was already a decade-old pattern. So we're coming up on 30 years. And it's okay that they got the preference. That's fine. But you just must understand that advice was, I don't think he meant any harm, but that advice is just not applicable. And that's not your fault. Even though I will tell you, leave Becky and Amber and Karen alone because they're the problem. And these problems stem from them and their men. Even though I would say that to you, and I mean it, I would still say that doesn't mean you can give Boom Shika Bonquisha and Sapphire a shot either. And I mean shooting you a shot. You can't be doing that. In order for you to bring it back to black, she must come to you with a situation in which she has choices. She must shoot her shot, give you choosing signals, not be looking to disqualify you, and be willing to compete with women of other races. That's what it's going to take. If you're not getting those, gentlemen, you can't bring it back. Now, I've heard that, they're more humble now in the States and things have taken the wind out of a lot of their sails. And now a lot of them are starting to come out and say, I'm hurting. It's hard out here. I need help. I've heard that. BGS said that he's seen that, and maybe he has. And that's another topic. I mean, I could do another recording as to why I understand that he says it's over, and yet I can't see the war being over, but I know what he's seeing. But that's another topic for another recording, another day, and I may not even do it. I may not remember. I probably won't. But getting back to this subject, you must understand that even if there is some humility, what the younger men are telling me is they see the humility here and there. It's still not across the board. That's going to take more time. And I'm not going to sit up here and tell you ambiguous looking brothers, or any black men for that matter, to sit and wait until things just get better for you to go ahead and give a sister a chance. Even to shoot your shot. If you're just an educated brother that's not a negative stereotype, you probably don't need to be making approaches to say, I've been saying that too. But man, if you are an ambiguous looking brother and you're not a negative stereotype, or you are, you better not. It's not even, your interest isn't even going to be appreciated. They don't even act like they're flattered in your case. You notice? If you do pay attention or you start to flirt, she doesn't even say, oh, well, I mean, thanks for thinking of it that way. I'm with somebody. I can't do them like that, but thanks for the attention. They don't even, a lot of times you'll notice you don't even get that kind of politeness, especially if other people are around. They don't want to be heard saying that to someone looking like you. If they like the way you look, they don't necessarily want that. Because they don't want someone to say to them what you like bright like that. And I don't just mean you're a little bit on the red side. I don't even mean that. I'm talking about like you just, you're ambiguous looking, questionable. If you changed your accent, people would think that you actually were from elsewhere and not the continent. I mean that. They don't want to be seen and heard saying something that polite to you. And that's when they're politely declining. They want to be heard, either never being approached by you to begin with, or they want to be heard telling you, no, that's okay. Absolutely not. Why would you even think so? Because, see, at first, in the beginning, they didn't want to come out and say, we don't like them light bright no more. One, I don't think they really just stopped liking it. I believe sisters have always organically liked men of different shades. I do believe that organically, naturally, that's been the case. But one reason they didn't want to say something like this early on was because they didn't want to send a clear signal to you that you have every right to go elsewhere. You got every right to go check out Ling Ling, Mei Ling, Maria, and Marisol. And if you're Muslim, even Habiba. They didn't want to send that clear message to you. They knew what that meant. They understood what that meant. They wanted to still be able to say, I chose. They didn't understand that if they were to tell you right off the bat what they were going to choose, they still would have been considered having chosen. But they wanted to be able to say, oh, I got light brights coming at me. Because, it was still a new shift. I got them coming at me, but that ain't what I want. You were a pawn, bruh. I was. A lot of us were. If you came up in an area where this was the case. Now, some brothers listening that came up in areas where this wasn't a problem, at least at the time they were coming up. And if that's the case, I understand it's different. It does change from region to region. I get it. Like some people say they didn't see a shift in New York up until 91 when New Jack City came out. But I saw a shift before that point. See, when that scene happened in New Jack City that we all know about, Sergeant Willie Peace talked about it multiple times. When that scene came out, I wondered if it was a commentary on the stereotypes. And I even thought, I'm just imagining shit. It's just the way it came out. It's just a scene. It could have been anybody. I'm just imagining stuff. But in actuality, by that time, it had been 2 years. That time was 2 years after I started to notice that I was being treated differently from other black boys my age, but I was never told why. I'd heard some things, well, it's the shirt you wore, but I'm not really sure that's what it was. It wasn't explained to me by that point, but I saw the pattern. And other cats said they saw it 93. But I can tell you on the real, sorry. You have every right. If you feel a sense of solidarity with our folks, our own, from whom we come, that's very natural. It's very normal. And it's very moral because it's solidarity with the oppressed against the oppressor, which is completely moral, actually. It's human nature. And it's commendable. You just have to understand that advice applies to your sister, your cousin that looks like you, maybe your daughter, your mom. It applies to the ladies that resemble you. It doesn't apply to you. You're not going to get that option except under circumstances that are not favorable to you, not even fair to you, and are actually should be insulting. And it is not your fault. That's the one thing a lot of you brothers were never told. You're not even to blame for it. However goofy someone called you when you were young, or however awkward someone called you when you were young, Once you knew what these things were and you made sure that they weren't you anymore, which most guys do anyway, it was not your fault. And you proved it was not your fault when you removed these things from your repertoire, from your approach, or from your demeanor as you got older and as you learned. That proved it wasn't your fault. And you may have never been some of these things. You just looked like it. And I say that in air quotes because you were stereotyped. See, for black people, when it comes to DNA, there are 3 words we need to know. And one of them we already do. We just don't know that it applies to genetics and DNA. First word we need to know is genotype. Look it up. Second word you need to know is phenotype, spelled with a PH. PHENO. Look that up. The third word that we need to know relates to DNA and genetics when it comes to black folks in the West is stereotype. You already know how to spell that. You just didn't know that it related to DNA because, remember, when the shift happened in 89 or 91 for some of you, we weren't told what the shift was. Remember that. And there's a reason you weren't told. And that was so that they could stereotype you and not even tell you why you were being stereotyped. And it took a long time for us to figure it out. I think I've said enough. I hope it helped. It's not your option to bring it back to black. And it ain't your fault. Thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual non-select male power, and black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.